Chapter 24. Bovine House, London, England, June 7th, 1889. Ray lay stretched across a fainting couch, as he had been for several hours while he slipped in and out of consciousness. The historian had managed to gather himself enough to be more or less awake now, and his frail chest moved up and down at a steadier pace than it had for weeks, although the occasional noise would often startle him, and his breath would become erratic as he searched the room with his one remaining eye. Ray was not awake long this time when Jamie entered the room, carrying a tray laden with medical equipment in their shaking hands. Ray had spoken to them in dazed and broken sentences a few times, although his mind failed to dredge up any of those conversations now. Jamie's condition was little better than Ray's own from what he could gather. Both were thin and haggard, their eyes ringed by heavy, dark circles and their bodies littered with cuts and bruises. Jamie knelt down and positioned themselves beside Ray. "I'm sorry I took a while," they said coarsely. "Our new friend seems to have claimed the nearest bathroom for themselves." Jamie soaked a cloth in a pot of warm water. "I'm sorry if this stings." Jamie began to wipe away the blood which surrounded Ray's missing eye, and the historian winced as the water trickled into the deep gouges his nails had made in his flesh. Ray's blood billowed out in spectacular clouds as Jamie wrung the cloth into the basin. Not the usual deep red of blood, but instead a rich purple color, tinged with magenta shades in the light of the rising sun, which crept through the open windows around them. "Where?" Ray muttered as Jamie's trembling hand dabbed around his eye socket. "Bovine House," Jamie answered, wiping his hands clean of Ray's purple blood and trying desperately not to look at their mentor. "Emmanuel's property, in London. He and Martin found us a few hours ago. We thought..." Jamie hesitated as he tried to steady his voice. "We thought you might not wake up for a while." Ray closed his eye, forcing himself to think. His memory of the last few days, even more so than the last month, felt like a vast field of emptiness. He saw glimpses, perhaps. Sherbet standing over him. Athena crouched at his side. His infected green eye, slippery with blood and clutched in his hands. For so long he had been somewhere else, it felt. Cloudy and grey and indistinct. "What? Jamie, what did I do?" Ray's voice broke. Jamie didn't respond. He simply looked at the ground, straight through the tray of supplies as his eyes bore into the wooden floor. Their shoulders trembled. "I don't know," they said simply. Ray nodded. He didn't need Jamie to answer, in truth. He could feel what he'd done, piece it together from the fragments which floated through his mind. He had done something horrible. He knew that much. "I'm sorry," Ray breathed shakily. "I'm so sorry." Jamie nodded slowly, biting their upper lip to keep it from trembling. He applied an antiseptic salve to Ray's face without saying a word and began taking out a set of bandages. "I know. It wasn't you, Ray. I know it wasn't you, not really, but I..." Ray closed his eye again, and as he thought about it he could hear the noise. The terrible, deafening noise. He could see Jamie reaching for Athena as he toppled into the rift. Ray could feel Jamie's fingers trembling against his skull as they maneuvered between strands of matted black hair to apply the bandages. When they were done, Ray took Jamie's hands in his own. "Jamie, did Athena..." He couldn't bring himself to say the word die. Not now. "Where are they, Jamie?" There were tears pricking in the corners of Jamie's eyes. They pulled their hands away from Ray and placed them in their lap. I got them out. I pulled them out of the portal," Jamie mumbled. "Sherbet took them, we think. And the others. They were all gone when we awoke. Athena was gone with them. Ray took a moment to process this. In the corner of his mind, he could see Sherbet looming over him, driving the toe of their boot into his chest. Ray flinched as he remembered the impact. And Sherbet, are they still as they were? Jamie shrugged. We don't know. Ray took in a deep breath. He looked at Jamie, seeing his assistant tremble with every breath. We'll get them back, Jamie, he said weakly. Jamie nodded silently. I know I haven't been myself recently, Ray breathed, looking at the floor. And I can't promise I will be myself entirely right now. But I care about you, Jamie. You're still my nephew, and as long as you're with me, I will do my best to keep you safe. Jamie didn't look at Ray as they began placing things back onto the tray, closing the jar of salve and wringing out the cloth. Ray's expression fell further than it had previously been, if that were even possible. I am sorry for what my illness has brought upon us. I understand if it's ruined the sense of trust between us. Jamie looked at Ray, their eyes glistening with tears. No, it isn't that, I promise, Ray. It's just... Their voice trickled off. I trust you, Ray. I do, truly. It's just... I'm sorry. So much has happened, and I don't know if I can talk about it right now. Not with Athena gone. Ray chewed his lip, looking away into the fire. I see. I'm sorry. He turned back to Jamie, taking in for the first time their hollow cheeks and eye bags. When was the last time you slept, Jamie? The barest hint of a smile flickered across Jamie's face, and then it was gone. Are you, of all people, truly asking me that, Dr. Morningstar? Very funny. Ray offered his own glimmer of a smile. You don't look well, Jamie. Ray lifted a hand to cup their assistant's cheek, as he had done so many times, his thumb drifting across their cheekbone, which seemed sharp and exposed on Jamie's unusually gaunt face. Jamie jerked backwards at Ray's touch. They looked away, ashamed, and sucked in a deep, wavering breath, holding back a sob which threatened to escape. They forced themselves to look into Ray's face and saw their mother's reflected back at them, her hand following the same path only minutes before. I'm sorry, Jamie stammered. It's not you, Ray. I'm sorry. They stood up hastily, almost knocking over the pot of bloody water. I need some air. Jamie wiped their eyes with their sleeve as they retreated from the room, leaving Ray alone to stare at his outstretched hand, worried about the familiar gesture scaring his nephew away. Ray knew that Jamie was scared of him, deep down. How could they not be? How could anyone he knew look at him again in a way that was not laced with fear and disgust? Ray would be scared of himself too. He was scared of himself. Scared of his madness, of the harm he had caused and the rift he had opened. He could see it so clearly now, the gaping maw, the mouthpiece feeding his world to the hellish reality beyond. His actions, his own drive, had brought his entire world, and very nearly the world at large, to come crashing down around him. A tear slid down Ray's cheek. Its twin in his lost eye burned as the hot droplet found nothing but open flesh to fall into beneath the bandages. How could he think of Endirion as a monster when this is what he himself had become? Jamie pulled open the back door of Bovine House and stepped outside, forcing themselves to steady their breathing. The moment they stepped out into the cool morning air, however, they froze, catching sight of a man sitting on the stone steps which led down to the small garden. The man's neck was craned backwards at an almost unnatural angle, allowing him to stare wide-eyed at the cloudy sky above them, muttering to himself under his breath. It took Jamie a moment to recognize the man they had pulled from the portal. It seemed he had put his lengthy time in the bathroom to good use. His face had been cleaned of dust and blood, and his dark brown hair, still streaked with white, was cleaned and trimmed shorter, if not neater, sitting in shaggy curls above his shoulders. He seemed to be dressed nicer too, although the tattered remnants of a dark coat he had been wearing hours ago were bundled beside him on the ground. Upon noticing Jamie, the man stopped his mumbling, and his head snapped back upwards as he turned to view the young person. "I'm sorry," Jamie said quickly, eyeing them wearily and bracing themselves to run back inside. "I didn't mean to interrupt you if you were praying or something." A smile stretched across the man's soft features. He had dark bags to match Jamie's own, yet his sunken eyes seemed to glimmer with a wonder which had abandoned the youth in the preceding months. No, I was not praying, child. I was just looking up at the sky." He turned back around to gaze upwards. "It is beautiful, isn't it?" Jamie looked up at the sky. Here and there, patches of easy blue peered through the mass of grey clouds which loomed overhead. It was not the most beautiful sky Jamie had seen before, nor was it truly a particularly beautiful sky by any real measure. Yet after so long trapped in the darkness, locked in the basement beneath their cottage, the sight of the open sky made Jamie want to cry. He soaked in the pinpricks of sunlight with his tired eyes and breathed the heavy air, the wind thick with an oncoming storm. "Yes," they agreed finally. "Yes, it is beautiful. I have not seen this sky, this beautiful blue sky, and these gorgeous clouds in, well, a very long time." The man smiled softly to himself, though there was a slight puzzled expression set in his brow. "Very, very long time," he added before continuing. "I spent so long in that dark, starless place, that world of blackness and shadows. I lost so much to that darkness. My whole life, my name, who I was. I had almost forgotten what it was like to see a blue sky. I have forgotten so many things. I am glad that I did not forget the sky." Jamie inhaled a sharp breath at the man's words. He tried to close his eyes, block out the memories, but that only made things worse. The darkness of the basement squeezed around them, crushing the fresh air from their lungs and replacing it with the dank, musty scent of their prison. Jamie whimpered slightly as they opened their eyes and took in the sunlight once more. At the soft sound, the man turned around once more, shrinking into himself. "I'm sorry," they said, not quite looking at Jamie. You don't need to be afraid of me. I know I was intense when we first met. A lot of things feel intense, you see, and I know I am not all there right now. I do not know where all of me is, but I will not hurt you." Jamie swallowed. They approached the strange man slowly and sat down beside him on the step. "It's not that I'm not afraid of you, exactly." You're not?" Jamie took a deep breath, avoiding making eye contact with the stranger by looking up at the sky once again. "No, I'm not afraid of you. I suppose that I'm afraid of becoming like you, or afraid that I could have so easily, that I could have forgotten who I was, become a shadow of who I am, a ghost of a person, that I could have been lost to the darkness. I think, in a way, I am also afraid that I might forget the sky." "Ghost," the man nodded sadly, letting the youth's words wash over him. "Yes, I suppose that is what I am now. A memory of someone long ago passed on, long ago forgotten. Jamie looked over to see the man wipe away a tear. Oh, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that was cruel of me. I shouldn't have... It's all right, the man smiled. It wasn't cruel. You are unfortunately correct. He looked at Jamie. You have been through a lot, haven't you? You've been trapped into darkness as well. Simply not my darkness. Jamie nodded, their breathing hitching. Yes, I was. Their words caught in their throat. I was locked in the darkness, they said instead. There were fresh tears streaming down Jamie's face now, and they tried to blink them away as they pooled in their eyes, still turned upwards towards the heavens. I was in there for so long. So many days without food and running out of water. And every time I close my eyes, I see that darkness again, and I'm afraid the darkness will still be there when I open them. Jamie let out a sob, and was surprised to feel the awkward but gentle hand of the stranger on their shoulder. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know it was worse for you, so much worse. The same thing for so much longer, but The man's long fingers squeezed Jamie's shoulder gently. Do not feel bad, because I have been through worse. Even a fraction of my torment I would not wish on anyone, especially someone so young. He paused for a moment. For me, after so long, the dark sky became normal. I cannot even imagine what it was like to go through that for the first time again. I suppose maybe it's best that some of my past is forgotten. Jamie wiped away their tears, looking at the man. They couldn't bring themselves to say anything more. But it's not all bad, the man shrugged. You're free now. We both are. Free from the darkness and the small space. It won't leave you, I don't think, the memory of that time or the fear you felt. I know that it will never leave me. But we have survived, and we will move on. He smiled weakly at Jamie. We may stand in the light together, because we have faced the darkness alone. Jamie nodded slowly, pulling their legs up to their chest. What is your name, if I may ask? The stranger removed his hand from Jamie's shoulder and ran it through his white-streaked hair. Jamie, the youth answered shakily. I would ask you your name, but you said you don't remember. Yes, I suppose there's not much point to asking. The man nodded sadly. It is very nice to meet you, Jamie. Thank you again for saving me, for pulling me out with your friend. I will not hug you this time, if that is okay. He smirked, and Jamie smiled, nodding against their knees. I would prefer that, I think. I suppose, if I do not have a name for you to call me, you may call me Ghost. Jamie let out a short breath of a laugh. I did say I was sorry for calling you that. Don't be. Ghost looked back up at the sky. I think I actually rather like it. Perhaps I am merely a ghost of who I was before. But do you know what the good thing about being a ghost is, Jamie? Jamie shook their head. What? A ghost is seen. A ghost is heard. A ghost is remembered. Even after death, a ghost is still there. Their story is ongoing, not yet lost to time. A ghost is never truly gone.